right before I'm about to go on. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle and triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. I love it when I see my guest speakers getting down to my intro. It's so awesome. I'm like, get it. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named Amy Graves. Amy is the CEO and founder of AMG Innovative Consultants. She is known for her laugh and has been nicknamed the Giggling Google Guru by clients and friends who call her Giggles. Before she started her company, she had to focus on how to live a life with chronic pain and still function. She shares her story to help others find their path and struggling with life's curveballs by finding what works best for them. I am thrilled to be sharing a stage with this woman. Welcome, Amy. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm doing well.
I love it. So tell everyone where you are from. Where you coming in from?
I am currently in Lake Elsinore, California. I've been calling California home since 2018. I'm originally from Minnesota, so it's a big change.
That is a really big change, actually.
Yeah.
I'm also from the Midwest, from the suburbs of Chicago. So
Oh, you get
I'm
it.
going to assume we both have the Midwest work ethic.
Yes, we do.
That is one thing that I am so proud of, and I always highlight to everybody that I meet.
Yep.
You can't find it everywhere.
Nope. I have definitely discovered that.
Yeah. So I'm so excited to be here to get to know you a little bit more, hear more about your story and all of the journey that you've been on over the last, well, for your lifetime.
Yeah.
But I'd like to kind of just start out with just letting you take the floor on what you would deem, because we see people's lives and we're like, oh, that's a challenge, but we don't know. So I want your take. What would you say has been the biggest challenge for you and that you've gone through in your life? And what did you learn from that challenge?
The biggest challenge was in November 2008. I became visibly permanently disabled. I ended up with paralysis in both my arms. It was temporary. I was able to work through it. It took a few years. And that was the biggest challenge. Like growing up in the Midwest, very, very not diverse Midwest, up north, like Canada north. You're brought up with a certain mindset. And part of that mindset is disabled people are a strain on the economy. They're lazy. They don't do anything. They just suck out the government money. That's what I was brought up with. And then I became disabled. I'm like, wait, that mindset's totally wrong. And you start to realize everything you learned growing up is wrong. So that was my biggest learning that came out of being disabled. And then realizing that there's just a lot of people who have really bad ideas about what disabled means and chronic pain in general. And they really don't have an understanding of how hard someone with chronic pain or with a disability really works to stay active. We don't fake being sick. We fake being well, and we do it so good you can't tell.
Wow.
And that was my biggest learning, and I'm still learning. The things people say to me just blow my mind.
What would you say are the biggest misconceptions?
Biggest misconceptions is that, so in my case, I use crutches, or when you see someone who's in a wheelchair that you assume they have no use of their legs and they cannot at all walk or move without that assistance. That's not true. Um, I deliberately bought a very small home so I could walk around my property and my house without my crutches, without over fatiguing myself, right? People who are wheelchair users, it doesn't mean they can't stand up. It doesn't mean they can't walk like 5 to 10 feet away. It just means that consistent use, their body can't handle it. Their body no longer keeps that energy for stamina that an average person has. And that is the biggest misconception, because every time I'm in a disabled group, we're always talking about how people are telling us to our face we're faking because they saw us walk without our mobility device. It's like you have no understanding of what it means to be disabled. Not a clue.
Oh, wow. I've never even thought of that before.
Mhm. Yeah, my neighbors started a petition saying that I am faking my disability, and no one in the neighborhood will talk to me now because they have
Because she
no
saw you
understanding.
walking around one time or something without it?
I bought my house deliberately so I don't use my crutches when I'm at my home. I deliberately try to keep my legs to a point where I don't need a wheelchair, which means I have to do things. I can't walk forever. I can't stand forever. Like, I can't do like the normal things everybody does. But if I'm in my yard, I can walk around my yard for 15 minutes and then go sit down for an hour. Like that's I can do that.
Wow.
Because I'm at home, I can rest when I need to. I can't do that in public, which is
Yeah.
why I need the crutches, because you don't know when you're gonna need to sit or rest your body. So why put your body through the stress?
So what happened in 2008? What was the pivot?
The leading up to 2008, I had been diagnosed with a couple of issues. Complex regional pain syndrome, type 1, also known as reflex sympathetic dystrophy syndrome. It's a nerve condition. It's the cousin to fibro. If anybody knows what fibro is, if you're in the chronic pain community, it led to some really interesting medical issues, and it led to me finding out more about other issues I've had for a while that nobody knew, which was Wartenberg's migratory neuropathy syndrome. Eventually came out of all of that. The paralysis ended up being diagnosed in 2013 due to Wartenberg's, but we didn't know that in 2008 because I have fun issues. So that was my pivot. My pivot was I went from being a full-time employee by the close of day November 5th, 2008 to November 6th, dropping my coffee, no longer having use of my hands, and just staring at my phone going, "How do I get to work?" Like,
Wow.
my entire life was based on work, and now I had nothing. I couldn't work. I had to actually, pay attention, focus on me, and deal with whatever issues was in my head to move forward. So 2008 was my pivot,
Wow. Just one day. No
one day.
sign. No
Uh,
like,
Nothing I would have I mean, yeah, there were plenty of signs. My body kept saying, "Stop. You're working too hard. You're doing too much. You're overusing your body." Because my issues are in my arms, for the complex regional pain syndrome. So combined with the Wartenbergs, what happened is I had overused my body to such an extent and didn't stop to rest and care for myself that the paralysis came on. So I haven't had paralysis in my arms since that day where my body said, "You're stopping," because I learned how to listen to my body. That thing no one ever does.
so when you say you were overdoing it, was that physically or mentally or emotionally?
Physically. I'm gonna say everything. I was in my 20s. So I mean, think about it. We're coming out of high school. We're in our early 20s. We're so much caught up in what does everybody else think? Am I doing a good enough job? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? I was a type A personality. So I was all about perfection, 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 and never hitting perfection. So that made me feel even worse about myself. I'm working extra hard physically. I was working retail management. So we started our holiday hours October 1 in 2008. Like, so I'm already working 60 to 80-hour weeks by October 1st.
Wow.
And I'm going into that, and by November 6th, my body's like, "We can't. We can't. You're mentally exhausted, you're physically exhausted, and your body can no longer do what everybody else does." It just died. And I had to start from scratch and relearn everything.
Wow. So did you, I mean, did someone, did you get a hold of somebody to have them take you to the doctors?
Um, I couldn't get in. My doctor wouldn't see me right away. Go figure. I was able to get in the next day, and my sister had to drive me because I went 2 years without being able to drive a vehicle because I couldn't hold a steering wheel long enough to get out of my driveway. So that there was a lot of intensive therapy that had to go, and it's not like a major injury, it wasn't a major accident. It's literally my body became so exhausted, it shut itself down. And
Wow.
it was just, yeah. So, this was before, and for people who aren't old enough to remember the days when your phone did not have text to speech, right?
Yeah.
Or speech to text. I
Yeah.
mean, Dragon software was the big thing then. Look
Yeah.
it up. If you're too young, look up Dragon software. So it was interesting of how I had to try and use my face, my nose specifically, to dial a phone to call work and hit the button for it to be on speakerphone because I couldn't hold the phone to my hand, to my head.
Wow.
Like, just it was just really unusual. So when I called my sister, I'm like, I'm gonna need a ride to the doctor, and I'm gonna have Lee call the doctor because I can't do this. But
Wow.
yeah, just sitting there. I sat there until my husband got home because I couldn't. I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. I just sat there. No food, no drink, just sat. That's what my body needed. Just I wish I would have done it a different way.
What sort of emotions?
You go through everything.
Like, were you
Because I was so
crying?
young. Yeah, it was my identity was in my work, so I didn't know what I was gonna do. I knew my career was done. There was no way, and when I went to see my doctor the next day, she's like, "You'll never work full time again." She goes, "And I will be surprised if you can ever work again." But because what I have isn't recognized by the federal government, it's not I can't be on Social Security disability. So now the problem was, how do we make an income? I'm the breadwinner. So my income was 75% of the household income at the time.
Oh,
So you're going through what are the financial situation that we're going to end up in now. I can't work. My identity is wrapped up in what I do as a job. So now who am I?
yeah.
And the next thing is, how am I going to go to the bathroom? Like you're thinking all these big things, and then you got to bring it down to what's today. And that's where you have to start shifting your focus. And it began, okay, how do I make my next move? What's the next? Because you can no longer think big. When you're in that spot, you got to think, what do I do to survive today? If I get through tomorrow, if I get through to today, tomorrow, the next day, what's the next step I can add so I can continually get back to where I was? I never, and I haven't. There's no way I'll ever be where I was, but that might be a good thing. Like sometimes these things happen for a reason and you find a different path that works so much more better than what you were on.
Yeah. So when you were talking, you said, I was a type A. Did that
Yeah.
change?
Oh, yeah. It had to. Um, it's like even if you look at my business today, like I will make changes to my website that aren't perfect because they don't need to be. They just need to be present so somebody can read it. Yeah, there's a spelling mistake. I hope you have give me some grace. But let's be honest, we're all human. Perfection isn't really attainable. What we can do is be the best who we are and continue to move forward and continue to grow off of that, which is now my philosophy. I'm going to do the best I can now and I'm going to learn from it and become better tomorrow. But today this is where I'm at. And that is the biggest mindset change. Giving yourself grace and giving yourself that belief that I'm going to be the best that I am today.
So
You're not
did this pivot that happened in your life, was this the catalyst that brought you to mindset and emotional health, or were you already kind
Yeah.
of dabbling? It
No.
did.
This was it. This was like I had no clue. Take this sheltered little blonde girl growing up like in the backwoods somewhere and then throwing her in the city downtown, having to deal with everything at once. And that's what happened to me. That's the best way I can say your mindset just has to shift.
Yeah.
What
Do
was
you
really
remember that journey, like who you clung on to, or your first book, or your first person do you remember?
my first book was The Four Agreements.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, yeah, that was my first book, and I'm
Did
like,
someone give it to you?
no, it had been so in November, what's the big thing on TV? Because I literally could do nothing but watch one channel all day because I couldn't even flip the switch, right? So I'm watching like the morning news shows, and the Four Agreements kept coming up on the different news morning casts about what to give people for Christmas. And I'm like, well, I'm going to give myself this book for Christmas.
Wow, so
I'm
that came out in November in 2008.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So that I read that book, and the next and I realized from that book that I needed to really turn my attention internally and focus on me. Like, I had always been one of those people who was the scared mouse, the wallflower, the shy person who nobody really knew, but they kind of liked, but she never really talked. So, like, retail was a complete like departure from what people knew me as because I had to be talk to people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the start. And reading that book, I realized I had to start focusing on me. And I'm like, the only way I could do it, because still being that type A, is I had to focus on something to work on. So for me, it was talking to people. So I decided to tackle stage fright. And I joined and I auditioned and was given a spot as cast at the Minnesota Renaissance Festival. After the first weekend on cast, the cast themselves gave me the nickname Lady Giggles. My actual character name went out the window, and to this day, they still call me Lady Giggles. So it stuck. I can't do script. I've tried multiple times to do stage with a script. Can't do it. But if you get me out and improving, I'm just fine. Just fine. It's a whole different mindset, but it helped me work through my social anxiety. It helped me work through how to talk to people, and it started to give me confidence. So it was a slow, but because of that one book, I was able to slowly get there. You just have to take it at your own pace.
So after 2008, what would you say was the biggest shift in mindset?
My biggest shift in mindset was literally finally embracing me and understanding that the world around me wasn't judging me. And it was maybe for those who are still come from that mindset where when you're kids, you're always thinking, you walk down the street, you don't want your hair to look a certain way, you don't want to dress a certain way because you're afraid of what someone's going to think about you. Guess what? They don't care. I reversed it and I started thinking about, well, what do I think about people when I see them on the street? And I realized, I'm so focused on me and my world. I don't see the people around me. I don't see their hair. I don't see what they're wearing. I'm not judging them. So is it possible a majority of the world's in my same boat? They're so concerned and engrossed in their own head, they're not really paying attention to the world around them.
Yeah.
And that shift helped me immensely because I'm like, wait, because I'll be thinking, oh, I wonder what they just thought about this. I'm like, well, I don't know them. So how would I know? So moving on with my day because it doesn't matter. Being polite. You're still going to be polite at the end of the day. That is the key. But when it comes to like people's thoughts about you, you don't know. You don't know who they are. You don't know what they're going through. They could look at you and have a thought going through their mind and not even be focused on what they see in front of them, which is typically my issue. My brain runs. I'll look at someone. I'll probably have a weird look and move on. And then I'm like, oh, that probably wasn't appropriate because they have no idea what was in my head. So
I'm actually even thinking about like when I'm judging people, like if somebody's wearing something, or trips or whatever. Even that, it's like literally 10 seconds of me being like, those are
I
interesting shorts.
right? Like,
And
I
then
wouldn't
that's
wear
like it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like, I wouldn't wear those, but I'm glad they are and move
Yeah.
on. It's like, it's not for everybody, right? You're not everybody's cup of tea. So who cares? It is. And I think especially as women, we put too much focus on what does someone else think about us. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's what you think of you and how you display that to the world, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I
That's
agree.
why we have. I mean, I always think about those memes with like the ladies in the nursing home, and they're wearing the fun colors, and they're all funky, and they're smoking their cigars, and I'm like, that's me when I get there. That is going to be who I want to be. Who cares? It's my life. Let me live it.
I totally agree. That's awesome. I want to ask what, with all of this, um, from beginning to where you are now, what would you say has been like the biggest lesson?
I think overall the biggest lesson is you're it, really just focus on who you are and your own personal growth. If you feel stuck or stagnant, it might be because you're no longer pushing yourself to learn something new, whether it be emotionally about yourself, overcoming an obstacle that you're mentally struggling with, or just learning a new task, there's maybe find a new hobby that you have to get engrossed in and learn. I think the biggest thing I learned is that when I stop learning and I stop trying to move myself forward, I get kind of depressed, and I need something to keep me I need something that keeps me hungry for knowledge. And that was really my biggest learning, is that I need that space.
That's awesome. When did you decide to get into kind of personal development yourself?
It's been slowly happening. So when I was first diagnosed with the nerve issues in my arms, I started, and actually no, it was after 2008, because I had started going. I had time now because I didn't have a job anymore. I had time to start going to support groups, and the support groups were so negative. I would say that within a year of me being in that one of those support groups, 3/4 of the people in that group had committed suicide. There was no positive energy, and I knew after walking out of the one meeting, I never wanted to be in that mindset. I physically can't do that. I mean, I'm Giggles for a reason, and I had to just let my authentic self out, but I couldn't. I had to find a way to move forward. I had to find a way over those obstacles that people with my condition constantly came up against. And I couldn't do what they were doing. I couldn't just sit there and feel like there was nothing for me. I had to find a way to make something happen for myself. Um, so that was, yeah.
When you say that they were fairly on the negative side, what does that mean?
They I hate saying wallowing in self-pity, but that's kind of how it comes across to other people. They were so caught up in what they could no longer do, they had stopped seeing what they were capable of doing. Because in our society, we're always looking at, you have to go bold or go home, right? Aren't those big sayings, you gotta do that. Guess what? If you're a disabled person, that looks completely different. My go bold or go home means I went to the bathroom by myself today. Right? Not something normal people think about. But you get to a point where, so one of the big things for me was I do a workout routine, but my doctors don't recognize that what I do is as a workout, because it's not on what the average male-bodied person does, right? When you think workout, you're like 30 minutes, 3 days a week, 4 days a week, blah blah blah, right? Yeah, no, as a disabled person I can't do that, right? So people in this group are focused on, they can't do 30
Oh,
minutes of workouts
okay.
every other day or even once a week.
Yeah.
But what you can do is 5 minutes every single morning, or maybe it's a minute here and then an hour later it's another minute. You're trying to stay active. You just have to do it at your level. And that's where a lot of my personal growth and where I try and help others today is how do you accept where you are today, acknowledge it, listen to your body, and then slowly grow on top of what you can do. I'm recovering from COVID. Like, COVID knocked me, like, I'm 6 weeks out and I'm still recovering, and a lot of it is physical because of my body limitations. But I've gotten back I've rearranged my workout schedules, and now I can still, not where I was, but certain days I can do a lot more than I did pre-COVID. So you just have to learn where you're from and what you can do, and that's a big part of personal growth, is accepting where you are today.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And I actually really appreciate you notating verbally the negativity in some of these or in your specific support group. So I think a lot of times people don't like to say that.
Yeah.
Um, Even myself, I've been sober for 17 years and I got sober on my own. I didn't get sober through AA or community or anything, but I was introduced to AA about 4 or 5 years ago through my fiance, who's also sober. And I voiced that too, that it's not the most positive atmosphere to be in.
Mm-mm. And there's a place for it. And I think that's what is, you need that balance. We need to acknowledge we are struggling,
Yeah,
and but that support group should be there to say, we understand. How can we help you to move forward? What do you need so we
yeah,
can help you on this journey? There's no reason why so many people in my community have died.
yeah,
And there's no reason for it. And it really comes down to is we don't have that mental health support when you
yeah,
get some weird, messed up diagnoses. Like
yeah,
and and I'm not saying it to be, I'm not saying positive, 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 like always be happy, because no, I have my down days too. It's just, how do you work through it?
yeah,
And if you can't, that's where we need that support. That's where we need someone to say, I'm struggling. How do I get through this? Hold my hand. Like, we
yeah,
need that. We're human. It's human
yeah,
nature.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
but negative and support groups, taboo topic.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's very it's frustrating because it's something that is killing people
It is.
in AA.
Mhm.
It
It
really is. And no
Yep.
one wants to admit it or voice it. So
Mhm.
that's so interesting that, you saw it in something that's not addictive, just
Yeah.
a totally different arena, and how important it is that you are in a support group, yes, to support groups, but then also there is an add-on that is necessary sometimes that's pulling you in a direction of problem solving.
Yep.
What's the solution?
Yep. And
Yeah.
even if there isn't a solution, how do we make it and manage it? I think the biggest issue in anything that where there's either from AA to chronic pain to, it's, how do I manage it, not overcome it?
Ooh, okay.
Ableist thought, people who are able-bodied, have never dealt with disability, never had a day an injury in their life, they don't understand you don't overcome your issues. You know, you have to find a way to manage and live with what you have, because if you are constantly stressing of how do I overcome, now you're adding a whole nother mental issue to what you're already dealing with, and it's going to make your problem and your symptoms worse.
Yeah.
It's an acceptance of, I'm not going to get better. I might improve, but I'm never going to get 100% better. So how do I manage this and still live a full life?
Yeah.
Right? It's like, if I didn't have my mobility crutches, I would never leave my home because I wouldn't be able to. I would be stuck on my couch. When I leave my home without my crutches, I have 30 to 45 minutes from the time I leave my house to the time I need to be back on my couch. And then I need 3 to 4 days on my couch, not moving, for recovery because I didn't use my crutches. That is why it's so key that you understand what your body can do and work with it. If I fought it, I'm just going to end up on the couch and missing out on how much of my life.
Yeah.
Understanding it and moving with it and understanding what I need to do so I can still have a life, I'm going to make that happen.
Yeah. Definitely. I can totally see that. And I totally relate to able-bodied versus What's the other?
Disabled.
Disabled.
I don't mind the term. You're fine.
Is
It's a hot
uh,
topic.
is the not recognizing it. Yeah, I broke my leg in 2020 and had never broken anything before. And when you were talking about going to the bathroom and you're like, yay, going to the bathroom, rock star. I had a definitive moment like that through the healing process when I could finally sweep my floor.
Right. It felt so good, I bet.
Yes, I do not like sweeping. And I have never felt like so blessed to be able to sweep my floor.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I don't have to depend on someone. I mean, we have absolutely a culture in this country specifically where we have to be
Yeah.
independent, not ask for help, and that completely goes against human nature. But when you get that moment where you got to do something on your own, it's just it feels so right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is, it's important to recognize and to, every once in a while put yourself in the shoes of, because even just what you're saying as far as not being able to walk, like I remember the same thing when during the healing process where I couldn't walk for any more than maybe 20 or 30 minutes before it would just start throbbing in pain. And it's until you're in the exact situation or a limited time situation, it's really hard to understand what those limitations feel like
It is.
mentally.
Yep, and I think that's why it was such a big learning point for me was I never put myself in someone else's shoes.
Yeah.
I was never brought up in a way that I had to think that way.
Yeah.
Or, I was brought up to think a certain thing at a certain time and about certain thing. And that's not how the world works. Like you have to have empathy and you have to put yourself in someone else's shoes to really understand what they're going through and to maybe you'll never truly get it, right, unless you go through it, but you can at least empathize. If I couldn't do that, I would feel pretty crappy too, right? Yeah, so it's a whole thought process, and I think a majority of us are brought up not to think about that, not to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, and that's where our personal growth can really grow, and that's where we need to focus on.
Yeah, definitely. What would you wish for?
Mm. So, funny enough, I would not wish for a different outcome. I have learned so much because of this disability that I don't wish it away. When people say, "Don't you wish someone would just cure you?" No, because I've learned so much on this journey and it's made me such a better person because of it. I would never wish this away. You just can't. So, what I do wish for though is for more people to have to open up their minds without going down the disability track. Wake up, look at someone else, imagine what it would be if you were in their shoes and had their circumstances. What would you do? How would you feel? And that's what I wish for. I wish for more people to be understanding.
Yeah. What would be your advice for females who are struggling with a disability? What would be some words of advice you'd give to them?
Find someone to be your rock, whether it be a partner, a girlfriend, a positive support group. And that means one that balances you're going to have your bad days. Let's talk through it. How do we move forward? But one of my biggest struggles was because I put so much focus on my work prior, I have no girlfriends. I don't make friends easily. I've got a great personality. I just don't make friends easily. And for me, it was really difficult. And my hardest, not the most fun learning, was how to ask for help. I have a great husband. We've been together 22 years. He's my rock, but asking him for help and it was a whole tense moment of being, I can no longer clean the house. I need you to not only be my spouse, my husband, but my caregiver. Those are hard conversations to have. But I had to ask for help to get there. And that was my difficult. So find someone who you can depend on, who you can ask help of. That is the biggest thing. Find that support.
Yeah. Love that. That's great advice.
Hard to find though. Easier said than done.
I could see that for sure.
Yeah.
So I want to take a moment and acknowledge those that are watching live. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out with us. We appreciate you. For those watching on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay so that we know where you were watching us at and we can send you some love. But I want to ask Amy, tell us more about your business. Tell us more about what you do to help all the humans.
So, with all of the issues I have, my company and I are actually making a quick transition here to, I work in the tech world. I do, websites and help you understand the human being trying to use your website so your website functions properly. And with all the issues, I came down with some really severe food allergies and intolerances to everything from food products to personal products. You have not lived until you had a tampon and had an allergic reaction. Yeah, so my company now helps allergen-friendly companies understand how to use specific wording to increase who their ideal client is so that they are transparent in their products, but then also can bring in people like, well, maybe not like me because I'm way off the scale, but people who have similar issues to mine or who have allergies so that they have a better understanding of how your product benefits them. The other side of that I'm slowly launching is I am starting a motivational kind of personal growth coaching journey that will be launching in the next, I'm hoping in the next year, where I'm going to work with people one-on-one to help them through their personal journey and kind of using how I've gone through mine as a guidepost, but work that to be worked around where you are in your growth and what we can personally do to help you move forward. Because sometimes it's hard to find that support person who understands. And that's where I want to be. I want to be that one support person that can help you and coach you down that road so you can live your best life. So multi-talented here. So if you go to my anymainstreet.com and sign up for my newsletter, that side of the journey will be posted through there before I go live with it on any social media site. So if you're curious, want to find out more about it, just sign up for the newsletter through anymainstreet.com.
How often do you send out a newsletter?
Maybe once a month. I say weekly-ish because eventually there might be more than one out there, but I'm kind of busy. So it's one usually around the beginning of the month. You get the full rundown, what's going on, and then I kind of leave you alone unless something special comes up. For the holidays, though, I do come up with because we are nearing the holidays, I do a special small business shout out. And I do a gift giving guide of all the small businesses that I've worked with. So like, I'm really excited. I just met a roasting company. They do single origin small batch out of Colorado. So they'll be part of my gift giving guide this year as well. So good times. I just like working with people, even though I have no friends.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Where can people find you on social media?
On social media, I'm on, of course, LinkedIn because business, but you can also find me on Facebook and Instagram.
Beautiful. And what
Twitter.
is your Twitter?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I got it.
Throw that one in there.
Yes, yeah, under the bus.
Great. Same with Twitter. I never got onto the whole Twitter thing. I guess because I talk so much, I can't get it into that little
right. Yeah. I just go there. I need a quick. Oh, was that an earthquake? I felt okay. Let's go check the earthquake generators on Twitter. Okay, no, we're fine. We're moving on. It's up to date news. That's why I go to Twitter.
Totally. I don't think I ever go to Twitter.
Yeah.
But one day I might. So I do have it.
If it's not you, whatever.
What are your big dreams for your business?
My big dreams are, I'm very much around helping others. So my big dreams are, especially from the allergy side, I really want corporations to understand the transparency needed in their ingredients so more people can enjoy their products. We can benefit your corporation, but we can benefit people like me who there are things I just won't eat. Like, it's possible it's safe, but the company's not transparent enough, so I'm not risking my life to try your product. Like that just isn't going to happen. So I would love to see more transparency in the world of ingredients in this country. If you go to the EU, you're fine. Just be careful if you buy anything in America. Way different set of standards. So that's where my big dream is, really to help more people understand how food ingredients are made and how that relates to allergies.
Absolutely. I agree with that. That's so interesting that you're viewing us as being so lackadaisical with that. That's true.
Mhm.
It's so bad. Why
It's
is
why
it so bad?
it's why I moved to California. I literally can eat no food out of a grocery store. I have to eat year round from a farmer's market because I have to go directly to the farmer to get my food, because that's how bad I am allergic to the processing and how ingredients are made. I can eat nothing manufactured. It is all made with my allergens, every single one. So we have, and this is where lobbyists become a problem. We have a focus on corn. Corn's my allergen. Corn's in everything.
It's everywhere.
It's in your tampon. I'm like, no,
Yeah,
the things I have learned.
people will say that to me. They're like, because I don't eat corn. I refuse. And they're like, what? And I'm like, I eat corn every single fucking day. It's in everything. So like, I
You
don't
don't
need
need,
extra corn.
right. You
Yeah.
don't, yeah. And on top of that, most of it's moldy corn you're eating.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. Dextrose, moldy corn sugar.
Oh, I didn't know
Yay.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to stay away from a lot of the box stuff, but we do.
Yep. Yeah. You
We
can.
can only
If
do so much. You know
Yeah.
what's so funny about this conversation? The interview I just did, the podcast I just did yesterday, she's a holistic food blogger, and she's having a hard time. She's like, I'm a year in, and hey, Brianna, if you're listening, she's like a year in. She told me this off camera, not on
Yeah.
camera, but she's like a year in. And she's like, I'm having such a hard time because I can't be perfect.
You can't. Not in this country.
There's shit everywhere. There's stuff in everything.
It's why
And and she's like, I'm morally having a dilemma because I'm marketing or branding myself as this whatever. But she's like, the more that I'm diving into these products, there's always one or two things in even the best products. She's like, she's like, it's basically like all you can eat is fruits and vegetables and like water.
and
There's
you can't even do that. You can't even
yeah.
do that because I'm allergic to the fruit and vegetables that are organic in a grocery store.
Organic?
Yeah, because they're sprayed with pesticides to be sold in a grocery store. FDA, that is an FDA requirement. The food may be grown without pesticides, but it's sprayed the minute it goes to a food truck. And it doesn't wash off. It does not. That's how I know, because I got so sick off of eating organic vegetables and fruit from a grocery store. That's why we live in California.
Yeah, so that's what she was talking about, and I felt so bad. I'm like, I
Yeah.
totally could see how that, because it's the same. Like, I try my best to look at the back of all of my foods, but
Yep.
sometimes there is just some shit in it, and you're just like, well, I don't know. We're just tossing a coin here because I'm feeling salty today, so I don't know.
I know that feeling.
It's crazy that like you
Yep.
feel like you don't have any control
We don't.
over what you're putting into your body unless you're growing it literally in your backyard.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
totally get that.
Yeah, it's time to go back, I guess, to World War II when we were all had our own little,
Our own
victory
farm.
plots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I talk about that with my fiance. I feel like there will be a time, might be, decades from now, but there is going to be a time where we're going to revert back because we're going to have to.
We're actually,
Because
I
we
think
want to.
we're closer to that point than you think, based on what I'm seeing. And that's why my company is positioning itself the way it is because more and more consumers are aware, like you are, that there's a lot of crap in our food.
Yeah.
How do we overcome it? And that's where companies now have to be transparent and say, this is where we're coming from. Like the coffee roaster yesterday, he's like, he works with a coffee importer who only works with small farm coffee growers. They're not owned by big corporations. It's single farms, no pesticides. Like, it's great. That's who I support. He is now my supplier of coffee.
Yeah.
Which,
Wow.
yeah. So yeah, it's a fascinating world, and because of the research I've had to do, I'm able to use that to help others. And I'm not trying to get companies to make food I can eat, because that's never gonna happen. But if you can be transparent so more people can eat what you have, now you've just increased your profits, but you're showing that you're a sustainable, ethical company.
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
100%.
Yep.
Well, this has been fantastic. I so appreciate you coming on, sharing some of your story and some of the goodness. You got a lot of stuff coming up. That's awesome.
I never stop moving. That whole I gotta keep, finding something else to keep growing. Yeah, that's just me. That's just keep
Love it.
growing. Yep.
I love it. That's my type of person.
Yep.
Well, I so appreciate you taking the time. Any closing thoughts before we wrap up here?
No, you are absolutely amazing. I only know one other person who actually became sober on their own because they had the same issue with AA. So I am always impressed and just amazed at people who can just find that fortitude and move forward. So congratulations to you. 17 years. That's a huge milestone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to keep going.
Yes.
For those of you that resonated with Amy and all of the goodness that she shared with her, make sure you check out her website, anymainstreet.com, and you can find her at Amy Graves on Facebook, Insta, and Twitter.
LinkedIn. LinkedIn. Yeah.
Oh, LinkedIn's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, LinkedIn's a good one. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Her Aversion. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. If you have a story to share, make sure to reach out to me. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire